Hello, friends, and welcome to World Build with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, we've got a new prompt from a patron who's never submitted before. But before we get to that prompt, we want to remind everyone that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, we're over on YouTube, where you got to do all the YouTube stuff to feed the algorithm. You can subscribe and do the bell and all that stuff, comment, all that fun stuff. We're also on Twitter at Let's World Build. We also have a Discord if you would rather come and chat with us more directly. Or, well, no, that's it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Or if you're feeling particularly generous, you can always go to our Patreon, where you can give us money, and in return, you will get sweet, sweet goodies that only patrons get. For example, you get access to Too Hot for Broadcast, the bits and bobs that never make the podcast for, all sorts of spicy reasons. You also have access to the Aphid Lounge, our monthly asterisks podcast that is for patrons only, among other things, including 2 parts for each prompt that you send us. So if any of that interests you, or if you just want to say thanks for all the podcasting you do, go to our Patreon at your leisure and just give us money. With all of that out of the way, it's time to dive right into today's prompt. Coming to us from our patron, Jonnie Law. Their first prompt, and I can't help but feel like this is a targeted attack at literally each and every one of us.
Yeah.
Here is the prompt. The world is basically a terrarium controlled by higher beings. All needs are eventually met, yet conflict still arises out of sheer boredom or happenstance. Tenet number 1. The protagonists of this world are a proud people, short yet stout, that have a deep connection to the earth. Number 2. There are dinosaurs in this world clad in feathers. And number 3, advanced life has developed a bit differently than we would understand it and doesn't rely on a vascular system. So again, we are dealing with this war crime of a prompt. Let's see. Considering how much blood we've had, Courtney, I feel like you must be somewhat sated. So why don't you start us off with our bloodless life forms here? What do you got for us?
Yeah. Since that, vascular system tenet from the prompt seemed pretty directed at me, I wanted to address how the advanced life works. And they don't have blood because whether through divine intervention or alien genetics falling from the sky or whatever, they evolve directly from the earth and from plants. So there could be subgroups, like maybe certain regions have these totally not dwarves that are tree-like, while others might be vines or crystals or any number of things. But whatever the case, they have a very strong connection with the earth, as the prompt said.
And obviously this is a metaphorical connection, right? They're not rooted into the ground.
No, I wouldn't say so. Though I do feel like when they die, perhaps they become one with the earth again.
Well, I mean, it is a terrarium, right? So
Yeah.
I imagine that that's kind of required of the setup, Yeah.
No, as we say, terrarium, metaphorically.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course, Daniel. So that sounds like a great segue, Daniel. Why don't you hit us with your metaphor that you're going with? What's your first tenet, sir? What do you got for us?
I was going to say that I have a tenet that aligns with what Courtney was saying, but it's very specific. But I'll save that one for later. But the tenet I was going to introduce is that the beings that control this terrarium are within it or part of it.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Again, so when we're talking about terrarium, you're thinking metaphorically, correct?
Yes, so far.
Okay, so far. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
What I wanted to avoid is, when you have the whole aliens outside of some kind of test project, kind of like Men in Black, the globe, the little globe marbles at the end. You end up having like the locus of the story taking place in the globe, and it's pointless to have aliens on the outside. So I thought, let's put them inside, so that way it's all part of the same scope of the story.
Interesting. Okay. This feels very Illuminati-esque already, where there's like machinery going on in the background. And speaking of mysteries surrounding the Illuminati, one thing that I was really, I don't know why my brain went here, but I really want a good portion of this prompt or some faction within the prompt itself. Basically, I want to focus on a detective agency within this particular realm, whether it be a major part or a slightly less major part. That's fine, but that's where my brain goes because I want to talk about mystery stuff. And yeah, I want a major player in the game to be a detective agency. You know what it is? I think it's because boredom and happenstance. Like I feel people are like making their own little stage plays of mysteries to solve for themselves. But you know, we can kind of go into that later. So Courtney, bring us back around to your second tenet. What have you got for us?
Yeah, this one was inspired by the Plangea RPG setting. A ways back, we had Justin Alexander and David Somerville on to discuss that setting. And one of the things I thought was cool about it was these like very simple, very direct limitations on the world. Like I think one was there weren't any numbers above 10, 9 or 10. Like that was the cutoff. You couldn't count higher than that. So for mine, I'm going to say there is no fire in this world, or fire is forbidden somehow.
Oh boy. Okay. Oh, how does that work with technology then? Okay.
No.
Okay. That's an interesting thing that we've got going on here. Daniel, what is your remarkably specific tenet that you've been holding back on? What have you got for us?
The protagonists and mushroom people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that is
perfect.
Yeah, that's like not as specific as I was expecting it to be. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
No, that's perfect. It aligns very well with my first one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Daniel, quick question. How damp are these mushroom people that we're talking about here? Like on a moisture level, right? On the moistometer, what are we looking at?
I don't like mushrooms, so I have no idea. To me, mushrooms are slimy and disgusting. But the ones I've seen outside are pretty. If they have dew on them, they're wet. But otherwise, they seem to be rather dry.
Today I have learned Daniel's entire understanding of mushrooms, and it's amazing.
What drove me to choose mushrooms because they're life forms that are not vascular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like they're among the only types of plants that don't have vascular systems.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize
most plants have vascular systems.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a connection to the earth as well, and they're mushroom people, then yeah, there are deep underground like spore webs of like mushrooms and stuff like that. So you can make it both metaphorical and literal if you wanted to. So yeah, that's interesting.
Moss are also not vascular.
Moths?
Moss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Moss. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you said moths or moss. So okay. I just want to clarify here because I'm like, I'm pretty sure moths have a vascular system, but that's fine. All right. So we've got mushroom people, we've got no fire, we've got a detective agency, and then I suppose I should go with my second tenet. Yeah, my second tenet is I want there to be competing technologies. One is like basically akin to a steam engine train, and the other is dino power a la like the Flintstones. So yeah, I want like dueling techs here because I want dinosaur world, but I also want, I don't know why. Again, my brain is just like I'm rebelling against this prompt a little bit because it's like oh fuck me, fuck you. I'm gonna make trains and detective agencies in it. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like I'm being an agent of chaos this time, which I'm happy to embrace at this point. But that's what I got going. I want some trains. I want some dinosaur people like the Flintstones. Yeah. So I suppose the inherent question that we have, right? What's the tension in this world? What's the conflict that we're looking at here? You know, like, because if it's made out of boredom or happenstance, what's the purpose, right? Like, where does the conflict actually happen? Where's the stakes?
I don't know. I kind of want to like go back and go over the tenets more because we kind of breeze through those pretty fast and like flesh that out more.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's answer the questions that we need answered, right? Like, Where do we want to start? Where do you want to start, Courtney? What tenet do you want to pay more attention to?
I feel like the fire one definitely has a lot of implications, especially like I'm sort of, I think, confused about your second one about like train / technology / dinos.
Sure. No. There are two major competing technologies, right? So imagine a
Okay.
tech tree, right? You're looking at a
Okay.
fork.
I
One
gotcha.
is dino powered, and the other is wait. I just realized. So does this mean that the dinosaurs don't have vascular systems either?
No, because I took it as like advanced life, as in like the
Ah.
kind of conscious beings are
So
the ones that.
what I'm hearing is that blood sacrifice is still on the table for Courtney. That's what I'm understanding right now. But okay, yeah. Anyway, to kind of answer that question, right?
Good to know. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. To answer that question, I'm looking at a tech tree. On the left-hand side, there's Dino Tech. On the right-hand side, there's what we would probably consider more traditional technology, or like steam engine trains and stuff like that. And I wanted to have what is effectively like a rivalry between the two, or like something that delineates or causes friction between those two factions.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. Which I think I agree with you, Courtney. Like your tenet complicates a lot. Like the firelessness of the world does, in fact, complicate things in a really interesting way.
Trying
So,
to think of this because right now none of our tenants overlap except for mushrooms and the plant life.
I know we're a bit all over the place, and I'm digging that because it means that we have a lot of creative freedom to fill in the gaps between those holes. You know.
I mean, a thought I have is if this space, let's imagine this terrarium is like a lost world or some kind of enclosed vegetable environment. And you said there's competing technologies. I could imagine the technology from within this world, which is without fire, versus the technology of those who are outside who have come in. So, for example, if you had like a journey to the center of the earth kind of situation, you might have like explorers or something who are outside this environment coming in with their technology versus the ones inside. And then you'd be able to have a division between beings that are inside who have their own sort of life versus these interlopers and beings inside being rooted to this world. Now, the prompt says that the people who are in charge of this thing are not vascular, right? Is that what it's wording? To that extent.
Or it's advanced life has developed differently and doesn't rely on the vascular system.
So we could take that to mean that if this is like a closed kind of journey to the center of the earth civilization, that the advanced life in it are the mushroom ones who are not vascular. And there's descendants or adjacent species that are not conscious. Maybe those are the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But I think that could bring almost all of our things together.
Daniel, that's a fucking brilliant idea. I love the idea that we're dealing with a hollow earth situation effectively, right?
Because it gives us some flexibility in interpreting terrarium, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea that like we're doing is just digging down into the world, literally. And this is what we see. And then if we use that as kind of like a jumping off point, like a launch pad, then yeah, you can have that delineation, which would square why there's dino tech. We have dinotopia, right? Mixed with like more steampunkish or traditional steam power technology. Like that would create reason for the delineation. And then on top of that, I mean, like instead of like a detective agency, why not have it be like a league of explorers as the kind of like agency that I had in mind, which I'm also totally cool shifting.
No, exactly. Yeah. I think because I forgot about your agency. I mean, that makes sense for it to be the group entering potentially.
Yeah. And realistically, what we can also do is just say that their roots are in like a detective agency, kind of like the Pinkertons, right? Like the Pinkertons used to be detectives until they were bodyguards and brutes and, you know, all sorts of general assholishness, right?
It could be a detective surrounded by many hired to help him in this expedition too.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, hold on. If that's the case, this gives me the rare opportunity to bring in a Columbo reference. So I just want to point out that if we have a detective, I would love that detective to model after my beloved Lieutenant Columbo, if
Of
possible.
course.
I mean, he's your detective.
Yeah, which by the way, this is my annual reminder that if you have not watched Columbo, you should go watch Columbo because it's an amazing series. And I swear there's going to be like an Aphid Lounge that's just Columbo one day. I know that we had one that was partially Columbo, but still, rant over. Want to bring it back to the world building. Daniel, that's a brilliant idea. I love our little hollow earth world that is like Journey to the Center of the Earth. I love everything about that. That's brilliant.
So I'm curious too, Daniel, about your idea that the higher beings are kind of in the world itself and like they don't exist, floating out in space or whatever. Do they actively interact with their people, or are they very hands off? Are they seen from afar?
I mean, in my head, for some reason, I'm getting, if we're going with a vibe of like some kind of detective group traveling into this world, right? And the people in control of this world are the ones within it. I'm picturing these little savage mushroom people, that live in some temple or something, and they're just not very nice, but they're the ones that are actually in charge of the situation because they're literally rooted to the earth,
Yeah.
And imagine however they operate doesn't require fire or energy that we understand. So it's different, like you're saying.
So you're saying that like the mushroom people are the higher beings?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
At first I thought maybe it would be the people coming in, but then that's too easy, right? Like maybe
Right.
they created this space, the mushroom people, they grew it, and the people coming in are exploring it.
Interesting, because I had interpreted higher beings as like gods.
Yeah, me too. But I thought, let's get away from that, right? Like,
okay.
Maybe the mushroom people view themselves as gods. I don't know, but I'm picturing little stout mushroom people being little things.
That's so interesting. When I read higher beings, my brain did not necessarily go to gods. I was thinking like higher evolutionary beings, right?
Yeah,
like not gods, but
like
cognitive sense. Yeah.
Right,
also, guys, I need to interrupt one more time for another Columbo reference, because if we're dealing with mushroom people, I'm imagining a mushroom detective saying just one spore thing. And it was haunting my terrible, dumb brain. And I needed to get it out into the world and create that evil so I can just live a normal life. So anyway, yeah, let's rein it back in. Let's rein me back in, and we can focus a little bit more on what's next, I suppose, right? Because do we need to settle the tension between the higher beings right now and like the explorers, or is that something that we can kind of watch organically grow?
Literally, because they're mushrooms.
Yes, exactly. Yes, Courtney, that's exactly correct.
Yeah. So like, I guess I'm still stuck on like the higher beings being kind of the protagonist / people living in this hollow world.
Oh, right. So the protagonist, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, that means the perspective is probably from them, isn't it?
Oh, so does that mean that the League of Explorers are like an invading force then? Is that what
they're definitely coming in from the outside. I guess we could also do like the mushroom people as the higher beings, and then like some other form as the protagonist. Like I talked about other plant beings or like earth creatures like crystals and so on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. It could be, yeah. Maybe the mushroom people are more like the ones in the temple and the kingdom, and they're kind of like, one island that exists in our world that has these people that live there that you can't approach them because they'll kill you.
Yeah.
Like they could be like that, but there's other life forms that live that are descended from the mushroom people, and those are your people that you created.
Oh yeah, maybe it's like the mushroom spores so spread all over this hollow earth thing, and like they've given the consciousness to the other protagonist groups, and they've also like infiltrated into the different like earth parts of the world, so that like that's how the mushroom people control it, sort of remotely as like a hive kind of thing.
I mean, you could then expand them. You could take one of if they've kind of evolved as their own little separate group descended from the mushroom people, right? I could imagine perhaps some of them actually left the terrarium and gone into the real world, and perhaps that's what kicks up the lead of the detective finding one, or maybe there's some sort of encounter and they decide to venture back as a way to lead you into the terrarium, into the story.
Yeah, like they find some sort of like spore life on the surface and follow it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it could be a full person. Who knows? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And it's sick and dying because it's not in its environment, whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just giving me like a weird mixture between like ET and Annihilation for some reason. Like in terms of the sick person getting brought back, or like using the sick. Oh, maybe the sick person is kind of like the guide, or like they need to get back into the terrarium, so it's kind of like a survival thing for them, something like that. And they're just being used as a map or a guide, effectively.
I'm also definitely getting vibes of The Expanse, which I started watching recently.
I've heard that's very good, by the way.
It was actually this patron's suggestion, and I finally started watching it, and it is very. There are certain things that I didn't like initially, but it's grown on me a lot, and the plot gets really, really interesting.
I hear it's very anti-capitalist as well, so I'm in.
Oh yeah, there's a whole lot about space capitalism, and it's a lot.
Is The Expanse, is that the one that was like, it was supposed to be a role-playing game or like a video game, and like they use the Bible and they're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna write a book about it?
It's a novel.
It's like a long series of novels that was turned into the show.
Right, but the initial concept or the impetus of the novel series was like, hey, this is supposed to be a video game MMO setting or something like that. And then it got canceled. And so they had all these like reams and reams of pages, and they're like, fuck it, I'm going to write a novel series around it. Is that The Expanse, or is that something else that I'm thinking of?
I don't think
so. How old is the novel? The novel's old, right?
I don't think The Expanse is that old, is it?
2011 was the first
it's
one.
not that old.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's old to some, Daniel, but certainly not to us.
Let's see. It's part of a novel to go back to 20. Let's see. It goes back to 2011.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, I thought you said
literally what Courtney said. Yeah.
Sorry, I heard 2021 in my head.
No. That's
really old. There's no way it could have been a video game in 2011. It would have been shitty, right?
Daniel, when do you think video games started?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. So someone began developing the world as the setting for an MMORPG.
There we go. Yeah.
And then for a TTRPG, and then
they said fuck it and made the book series.
Then I guess so. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sorry. As a TTRPG then?
So it's initially as a setting for an MMO, and then for a TTRPG, and then somebody suggested that given the depth of the setting, it could serve as a basis for actual novels.
Interesting.
I just feel vindicated right now because I'm glad that my dumb brain remembered that correctly. Anyway, we got a podcast to do, I suppose, right?
Oh, yeah. I guess so.
Yeah. All right. So where do we want to go next, I suppose, is the question. What are the unresolved questions that we need to really dig into here? I still feel like there's a little bit surrounding the kind of split between the protagonist mycetid people and like the outside people. Maybe we should start there. Maybe like starting there. When we say that the mushroom people are the higher beings, are we suggesting that the people who are coming in from the outside are not mushroom people? Are they different sentient species? Where is our brain going when we think about that?
I didn't picture them as mushroom people. I pictured them as human or something else.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we can have like a fun little anti-colonialist, anti-imperialist messaging here is kind of where my brain's starting to go, right? But does this mean that with this encroaching force, does it kind of negate or at least put conflict to a world where all of the needs are met? Are they like causing the needs to not be met? Are they causing an imbalance in the ecosystem? Like it's a terrarium, right? So there's a balance to these things, and these invaders might be causing an imbalance that is devastating.
I kind of like, me personally, I would rather not focus too much on the outside people. Like maybe they're just starting to they're literally just discovering that this is here, and it's a small group that hasn't, like, I don't know. I don't want it to be like a full on, like the evil outsiders are coming in to swarm the peaceful people in here and like that sort of thing. I would rather have it be like a very small group of explorers who just kind of discover this place and get cut off from their world somehow.
Oh, okay.
So they can't like drag in, the entire United States military or whatever.
Yeah, I
Sure.
feel like we've done like I've seen the post-colonial kind of
Yeah.
vibe done to me, and it seems too obvious that you'd have, oh, the mushroom people inside their environment are the victims, and the
Right.
encroaching whatever's are the villains. So I'm wondering, either turn it on its head or you make it about something else. So,
Mhm.
to Courtney's point, I wonder if, because if in their group there is someone who's from this place, it would then be about returning home, and the people
Mhm.
escorting them or exploring are not so much interested in colonizing as they are just understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm. Oh,
And like
yeah.
the thing in the prompt about like conflict still arises out of boredom or happenstance. Like maybe the one who wandered out onto the surface was literally just bored and wanted to see what more there was out there, and then was like, ah, shit, I'm like dying out here. I need to get back.
exactly.
And that's
Ooh.
kind of how this whole thing started. So it wasn't even like an invasion from either side.
Mm.
It was just like, well, I'm bored today. I'm
Oh.
gonna go on an adventure.
Oh, you guys are explorers? Oh, that's crazy. I'm an explorer too, right? Like that's how the
Mhm.
mushroom person is like kind of talking. And I actually like that a little bit more that like they're not benevolent, but they're not like straight evil either. Like I think that's more
Yeah.
interesting. I love the idea that these detective agency folks bring a genuine sense of wonder and like mystery to the
Mhm.
world. I think that kind of interesting tension that we can create there is what does their introducing to the system change about the world? And mind you, it doesn't necessarily have to be like they are an encroaching evil invading force, but
Mhm.
rather what are the tensions that arise by their presence, right? By the sudden appearance of these explorer people.
Well, you had as one of your tenants a conflict between technologies. So if the mushroom people aren't antagonists and the interlopers aren't necessarily antagonists, it could be some technology they bring with them that creates a problem
Hmm.
interfacing with the technology of this place.
I know that it's against Courtney's tenet, but is it fire related? Like, I can't help but think that, like, yeah, there's a reason that fire is banned and fire has no place in the technological world. But that was mostly for the protagonist, right? Like, if we introduce this as like this is the, like the tech that is destructive and forbidden, is that kind of the route that we want to go down? I feel like there's more interesting things we can do there.
Like I could definitely see this kind of like Columbo type detective at some point wandering around down there and like pulls out a cigar and a lighter and flicks it, and the explorer mushroom person is like, "Oh my god, what are you doing? You can't. That's going to destroy us all," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that could lead to something, or at least it would certainly make the mushroom people skeptical of these people.
Okay, hear me out on this one. Can we turn this into a religious drama or a drama between two conflicting religions or maybe even just belief systems where it's like they have been shown the benevolence or at least non-threatening nature of fire, and so there is a shockwave that is kind of like shaking the core foundations or the foundations of belief within this system. Like, I don't know. I think that there's something kind of interesting there.
Yeah, I guess my thought was that fire would be forbidden in some way just because of like the environment that these mushroom people and the other groups down here like need to survive, like heat and or not just heat, but like the dry heat is sort of against what mushrooms grow
Mm.
in. So if there is a that sort of dry heat that a fire can bring, like that would just kill them potentially.
Well, mm.
What about taking fire not so literally?
Go on, Daniel. You've got my attention.
Well, fire is, what is fire like fundamentally? It's like it's a conversion,
Chemical
right?
reaction. Yeah.
So what about that process is forbidden? Like it creates energy that way.
Like the combustion aspect, you mean, or the
Yeah,
consumption of something to make something else?
yeah. I was trying to think to give you more options, right? So if it's not
Mhm.
literally setting something on fire, because if this place operates with regular physics, fires are going to happen whether they want them to or not, right?
Right.
So maybe it's not just they call it fire, but it's more than that. Like
Hmm.
it's fire as energy or fire as directed energy or something like that. Controlled fire is what they are object to.
Hmm.
Oh, it could be like a wildfire happening
Hmm.
is obviously not good for the mushrooms necessarily, but it's not like it's expected rather than like a controlled or created fire. That's the issue.
Like a combustion engine, that would be, like you're saying, Rob, that would be against their religion.
Maybe like fire is forbidden but respected. Like they respect the natural formation of fire, but if somebody is trying to like control it for themselves, that's seen as like heresy.
That's actually kind of what I was going to say when Daniel brought up the idea of a controlled burn, right? Like you're right, Daniel, like burns or fires will occur naturally, right? And if fire is seen as like an inherently dangerous thing or like a heretical thing, controlled burns probably have to be done. First of all, controlled burns are good for the environment overall. And if controlled burns are necessary for this world, they're probably handled by like a priest class of some kind. And so to use fire outside of a religious purpose might be seen as blasphemous in some way or something.
Or I was more so saying that like a purposefully started fire would be out. Like that's a form of control that they wouldn't want to inflict upon the fire itself. But like they will let like a wildfire burn, if that makes sense.
Right, but what I'm suggesting is that like a controlled burn, right, is like you have to set it to make sure that the ecosystem is healthier and not wildly dangerous.
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of environment. Because like we were talking about Hollow Earth, I was literally picturing like damp caverns full of mushroom growth and stuff.
Sure.
Like the Underdark sort of thing.
So if everything's damp, what's the threat of fire then?
Or I mean, that's the issue. Like if somebody were to bring fire down, use it in a controlled way to inflict harm, that would be bad.
It doesn't seem like both of you are disagreeing so much as in the degree to which you want control over it. Because I think what you're saying is the environment fundamentally doesn't really have fires happen often. But if it does happen, it happens, right? You can't control it.
Yes. Yeah.
What Rob's saying is they might view the fire religiously and that it's something to be respected and feared, and that perhaps among the mushroom class, there is a type of priest who knows how to control fire, but they don't want anyone else to do that because they know that the implications of it. Is that fair to say for both of you?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm interested in talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So then it seems like what we'd want is, on the whole, on the average, fire doesn't really happen in this dank, underdark kind of place, except for occasionally when things get really dry, it might happen. But there is a priest class who understands fire and can control it. And that's probably why I would imagine it's sending parties out to kill those interlopers who are using fire.
Yeah, because those are seen as like dangerous and like unnatural. And since there's so much emphasis on like connection to the earth, they really only want stuff that is natural.
Yeah. So I think that ties in both what you were saying, Rob, about this religious distinction, right? They have a religious understanding of these things, but then also keeping fire not too literal, because I think we're still saying it's literally fire. It's just a matter of directed or not directed.
Right. Well, I mean, could this be a clash then of like technological beliefs then, right? Like if they are so ensconced with the earth and they are in a sense like really like all they really want or care about is this kind of connection with the earth, like maybe they see using technology as like also kind of blasphemous or heretical, right? Like the dinosaur technology that I was kind of getting at is natural, right? You're using beasts of burden effectively.
Yeah.
So there could be another point of contention or kind of stress between them.
I think so, because if you expand the use of fire to be more than just, I mean, it starts at the baseline of being literally fire. But if you think of like a gun, or you think of, I don't know, like a laptop or something, they're all directing energy in some various way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the mushrooms don't like that either,
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I was suggesting as well. Yeah. Like I'm with you 100% on that one, Daniel. Like, yeah, it's metaphorical fire.
Exactly,
like they see technology as the metaphorical fire. Yeah.
Does that cover both your bases? I was trying to find a way to linguistically bridge them. I think they're bridged.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm totally cool with that. But again, I'm having trouble like finding like the narrative thread or like the kind of like hook that's really got me interested in this world. because it's like, okay, we've got some cool elements going on, right? Like
Mhm.
we've got like the terrarium aspect, we've got like this conflict between like belief systems. That's all really cool. I think what's happening for me is like I'm having trouble viewing the world or feeling lived in it. There's something missing. Do you guys feel that as well, or am I on my own here?
I think that might happen when we have like more factions, because I think the hardest part of this so far was making all these tenants, which are totally disparate, function as one thing, and now they
Yeah.
are, which is
Right.
I'm surprised that we were able to do that. So like, they all fit in together as a puzzle piece, but to your point, now I have to decide, okay, we've got some characters and we've got some motivations. We don't really know what the mushroom people are about or what this terrarium is for, how it functions. But those are all things that might inform living in this world, because we want to tell it from the perspective of the people who are descended from the mushrooms, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
So, okay, I think now is a good time that we go back and rerun our tenets, right? Because we have, like put the world on our back, right? We got it. We finally smashed it all together. So I think now is a good time, now that we understand what's going on a little bit. Courtney, you started us off. What was your first tenet? And are you feeling satisfied?
Mine was that they don't have blood because either through divine intervention or whatever, and I think we kind of talked about the mushrooms here, they evolved directly from the earth and from plants. So there could be plant-oriented ones or crystal or things like that for these protagonist groups that are out there. And I do feel satisfied with how it wound up. I think that we could definitely expand on the different types and like how they all interact. And I do like that it kind of came from, or eventually stemmed from like the spores of the mushrooms sort of giving life to these things. That's pretty cool. And yeah, I think we could definitely build out more there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be really cool if we kind of sat down and talked about like crystal folk or something like that for a little bit. But yeah, I think that's something that we can probably do next episode. And plus, spores and mushrooms being primary is very helpful as well. So
yeah, I also feel like I'm picturing like these sort of mushroom descendants, like they have little like tiny little mushroom fungus things growing out of them to kind of signify that that's where they stem from, even though their entire bodies are like crystalline or whatever. And that also, did you say gross?
Yeah.
And that also has implications for like hive mind type interactions or like shared thoughts and telepathy and so on.
When you were talking about this, I'm like, oh shit. It'd be kind of interesting if the spores were like grown from a fetid like corpse of a god or something like that, or a fetid corpse of like some ancient being. I think I'm probably going to do that as a faction next time, just as a spoiler. But that's definitely something I'm suddenly very interested in. Although I don't know, I like the idea of like crystal people as well. I think that's kind of interesting as well. But yeah, there's a lot we can do there. You're absolutely right, Courtney. Daniel, hit us with your first tenet. Remind us, what was your first tenet?
The people who are in charge of this world or the overseers of it are in fact inside of it.
Now, question: do you feel like we've satisfied that, or do you think that there's like we're missing a little bit something from that?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. They're the mushroom people.
Yeah, right. And like I was saying, like the idea that their spores have sort of gotten into everything in this underdark hollow earth, where like to the point where they can kind of oversee and control all sorts of things from their position.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have the hive mind aspect to it as well. If we wanted to go there. Sure. Okay. Yeah. I'm down with that. What was my first tenet? My first tenet was, I wanted there to be a detective agency that played a role in the story. And I feel like the exploring group satisfies that tenet for me pretty well. I still think I'd like a little bit more mystery in there somewhere, but I think that that's a good start.
Yeah, like I'm curious too if those explorers end up meeting up with another kind of similar detective agency underground here, and those ones are more so dealing with the like petty things that arise out of boredom and happenstance.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, you could even, if you took it the stereotypical nature, which I'm not suggesting this, but you could have the eternal detective agency among the whatever vegetable people there are. When they meet up with the detective people from the outside, they learn that there's something happening to their world that could potentially kill it. And,
Yeah.
you know, and in fact, the only way to solve that is an understanding of the technology that's forbidden. And perhaps the crossover with the person who's left and is coming back allows them to interface, you know, to solve that. So that could be a way into the story too.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about this, right? Like, what if, like, if we're going a hive mind route, right? Maybe they need individuals to kind of like separate from the hive mind. One, to like alleviate boredom, right? Like there's a sense of unknowing and a little bit of chaos in that regard. But also they need them to remove themselves from the hive mind to gather further information. And that's where the explorer kind of comes in. So now all of a sudden the narrative isn't just, I need to go home. It's, I need to go home because there's something important I need to share.
Yeah, I like that idea of splitting off from the hive mind, like literally separating yourself from it, like pulling the mushroom off of your head to go out and do things on your own. But I was also thinking when Daniel was talking about like the understanding of technology that's forbidden but might be necessary. Like, what if it's something like the core of this earth is dying and they need to do something to like restart the combustion of it? Yeah, exactly.
If the earth core is a molten core or perhaps a fiery core, that could also be something related. Yeah, I see.
Exactly. Yeah. Like obviously like deep under this underdark-ish thing, like there's the actual core of the earth. And if that's dying, like they need to use some of that forbidden tech to like boost it. Yeah.
Look, John gave me a tenet that basically forced dwarves, right? And honestly, why not go full dwarf and say that they need to dig too greedily and too deep, right? Like, I feel like that's thematically appropriate for the tenet, for the spirit of that tenet.
Yeah, maybe even that's something that's kind of forbidden initially in this culture, because that is a form of like changing what's natural and using force and energy to change the earth and to mold it to your own purpose. Like maybe that's kind of not really a good thing in their culture, but maybe part of the solution to if we go with like the core is dying, like you have to dig in to get to the core to use combustion to start. So it's like a combination of forbidden things that we're gonna have to deal with.
That's a fun twist as well. It's like you have to break the taboos in order for you to save the world. Like that's always a fun little thing too. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Okay. Now I'm starting to see the pieces moving together. Now I'm starting to get interested and excited for this. Yeah, 100%. Okay. Speaking of, let's loop around back to the second tenet. Courtney, what was your second tenet?
Yeah, that was inspired by the Plangia setting, which has these very direct limitations. That was that the world doesn't have fire, or fire is forbidden in some way. And we've definitely satisfied that, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, let's be real here, right? Like, when you place limitations, they're there to be broken in cool and narratively interesting ways, right? Like, that's why you put the limitation. That's why Daniel comes in and every so often is like, twist that knife, like, haha, you think this, but not. Speaking of Daniel, what was your second tenet?
That the people are mushroom people.
Oh, I don't know. Do you think we've satisfied that? I think that I've said mushroom person or mushroom people more in this episode than I have collectively in my life. Yeah, I think that we're good on that one.
I won't be satisfied until we have the live action Mario Brothers movie.
I could go so many ways with that. Also, mushrooms are delicious, Daniel. You're out of your mind. You're thinking of canned mushrooms, which are disgusting and slimy, but like regular mushrooms are awesome, especially good morel. Oh, give me a good morel. Morels are so fucking
delicious. I've seen and tasted mushrooms in prepared dishes, and I've definitely not had them in cans because that's even more disgusting.
Oh no,
but in general, they're all disgusting.
My boyfriend hates mushrooms too.
Your boyfriend hates a lot of things. Your boyfriend hates eggs.
Fungus. Like, why are we eating fungus, first of all? Nutrition. We have nothing else to eat on this earth that does not literally grow out of cracks and disgusting, like, fermentation or whatever. Ew.
Okay, wait. Is this why you hate vegetables? Because they grow in the ground?
I don't hate vegetables. I like vegetables. What are you talking about?
We have a whole episode about that on the Aphid Lounge about your weird preferences.
I don't like certain things that are gross.
Exactly, and they're weird. Anyway, okay, let's wrap it up. Okay, my second tenet was there is a conflict between two types of technology: the dinosaur-based one and the more traditional steam power or locomotive-based one. And again, I feel like that has been thoroughly explored, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think so. And like, I could even see like in the past or throughout the history of this Hollow Earth, like maybe people have experimented with that forbidden locomotive tech and like have been kind of pushed down. But I'm sure there's like sects of it kind of still floating around there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. I suppose now is where we roll the twist and pick us off next time. Is that right? Y'all feel good about that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and roll our twist. And our twist for this time is Cillian Murphy with a parenthesis that says, "Thanks, Courtney."
What the fuck?
I forgot that was on the list now.
That is absolutely on the list. So our twist is Cillian Murphy.
Our options are nuclear bombs or zombies. That's basically what that's saying.
You've got so many more than that, Daniel.
Yeah, there's Sunshine, which is literally about restarting the sun.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
See, look, Cillian Murphy, surprisingly.
What else is he in? He's one of my favorites.
He's
Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, Peaky Blinders.
He was also the Scarecrow in the Batman Begins movie.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was also Red Eye in the movie Red Eye.
I haven't seen that, but I've heard it's actually pretty decent.
I mean, it's got Cillian Murphy and it can't be that bad.
Yeah, sure. He was in Dunkirk.
He was in Dunkirk.
All these movies I did not see.
All right. Well, look, we'll have plenty of time to research Cillian Murphy later after this episode. So let's wrap it up. Remember that if you want us to build your world, if you want us to Cillian Murphy your world, go ahead and go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. Go ahead and go and subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave a comment and like and all that other stuff that makes me hate myself. Also, you can join us on Twitter at Let's World Build, or you can come and talk to us more directly through our Discord with a link for that in the description. Of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, you can always give us money over on Patreon, where you get access to sweet, sweet bonus goodies. All sorts. Go take a look. You know, if you're vaguely interested in some of the content, go take a peek over there just for a little bit. And with all of that, a big thank you to Jonnie Law for this particular prompt. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much. We're going to get through this together. Until next week.